So, Mr. Dawson, how did you decide to go to Purdue for college? Were there a lot of colleges recruiting you back then?
Well, I had a very good senior athletic thing at Alliance High School. I was first team All Ohio in football and basketball, and so there were a lot of colleges after me, and of course I'd heard a great deal about Ohio State, growing up in Ohio, and talked to the head coach, and it was interesting. He's telling me what the offense was going to be like. He says, you're going to be under the center, and there'll be three backs behind you. He said, and when you take the snap, you step into the line of scrimmage. And then you're going to go down the line of scrimmage, and we're going to option off of the defensive end. Yeah. And he said, an option? What do you mean by that? He said, well, if he comes after you, you pitch it back to the halfback that was coming by. Or if he thinks like he's going for that guy, then you run with it. And I was thinking, my health is going to be in the head of a defensive end. I know what's going to happen. If I'm coming down the line of scrimmage without anybody blocking for me, they're going to rip my head off. So I said, no, I don't think I like that one. I went to Purdue and I talked to those people, and they talked about passing the football. And so that got my attention, and that's one of the big reasons why, I went to Purdue University. I liked the coaching staff there, and Hank Stram was part of it even in that particular time. He was assistant coach at Purdue University. So I like that type of football, because that's what I really did during high school.
So Woody Hayes couldn't convince you to run the option and just run the ball?
No, that wasn't me. I was a passing quarterback. And I'm running down the line of scrimmage. What do you think that defensive end is going to do?
You're going to think about
it. That's right. And so then they bring in another quarterback. So things worked out very well. I didn't go to too many schools, but Purdue impressed me.
So you mentioned Hank Stram. Was Hank the one who recruited you for Purdue, or was it more the head coach?
He was one of them. He was Stu Holcomb was the head coach, and he had several assistant coaches, and Bobby DeMoss was one of them, and Bobby just passed away not too long ago. He was the quarterback years ago, and so he was the freshman coach, and they had some other coaches as well. So, Henry was just one of them.
With Purdue, you mentioned they were passing the ball. That was rare back then because most of the colleges were running the ball the majority of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got off to a tremendous start. My first game was against Missouri, and I started, and I ended up throwing 4 touchdown passes because they didn't know anything about Purdue having somebody that could throw the football. And the next week, I'm going to South Bend, Indiana, some school down there. It's a religious school down there. I ain't buying that either. But Paul Horning was on that team, and some other players, and in their home too. And I ended up throwing 4 more touchdown passes. I had 8 touchdown passes in 2 weeks. I should have just quit right there because they found a way.
What was it like playing at Purdue was back then in the mid-'50s?
Oh, my goodness. Nothing like today it was. And, because today it seems like, they're there the whole year playing football, whether it's football season or not. But it was cool that I was there to get an education too, because I didn't know anything about professional football. Not thinking at that particular time, I was a young man, and so it was an opportunity for me to get a college degree, and so I was a pretty good student too. So that's was in my mind. I really wasn't thinking about professional football.
Back then, you didn't not only played on offense, you played on defense. You played with defensive end, was it, and also kicked?
I had to do it. It's just like one platoon back in those days. I had to play defense. I didn't play defense in high school, so they put me back at safety. And anybody catches over your head and things like that. I try to handle that, but I wasn't a hitting quarterback in those days, or any days, as a matter of fact. And so back there, and I was just, I didn't think that they figured that I was going to be a strong defensive back there, but I had great hands and was a pretty good athlete, and so they put me back there because they had to put me someplace.
Did it help you playing safety as a quarterback because you basically could think like the defense was thinking that you played back there?
Yeah, I called plays too, back in those days. But I'd get help too from when I got to the sidelines and that. But it wasn't anything like people sending somebody in and out, to tell me what was going to happen. So it was up to me to call the plays, and I enjoyed that because I could very often some of the routes that we had, tell the individual, what to change rather than what he was supposed to do.
Did you have any idea you were going to get? Did you have any idea you were going to get drafted in the first round of the NFL draft?
Did I know that I was?
Yes.
What did you say?
Did you have any idea you were going to get drafted in the first round of the draft by the Steelers?
No, I didn't. Didn't know much about it at that particular time, and it's not like it is today. All the hype and everything else, but so
because there was no scouting combines or basically
no
scouting trips.
None of those things. It could be like some of the coaches at Purdue had played professional football for some time, maybe not a long time, but some time, and so they knew some of the teams and who owns the team, and so I can recall when I got drafted by the Steelers, that one of the assistant coaches who had played for Pittsburgh took me to Pittsburgh, to meet the ownership and the coaching staff.
Pittsburgh wasn't doing that well back then in the late 50s and the early 60s, so that franchise was kind of fledgling. What was it like there?
It was different. Buddy Parker was the coach. Do you remember who he is?
Yeah, Hall of Fame coach.
With the Colts, so he came over. Art Rooney got him over to Pittsburgh, and because what he did, he brought Bobby Lane over, who was the starting quarterback in Baltimore, and he was going to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers. And it wasn't anything like what they do today, because they work with the people that are drafted, work on them and explain to them, what you have to do and what you can or cannot do. And it was just kind of on my own. And so not too many coaches. Anyway, there's a couple of assistant coaches. And so it's not like today, like they have a quarterback coach, you got a punting coach, you got all these other specialists, on the football team that are the coaches. So there's just a couple of assistant coaches besides Stu Holcomb. Now in the college ranks, I would assume you know probably better than I do that there's probably a lot of assistant coaches.
Oh, exactly. And I don't think Bobby Lane was looking to take you under his wing and teach you maybe how to drink, but not to play quarterback.
That's absolutely true. It was a real character. There's no question about that. And,
so all those stories were true about him.
I don't know about all of them, but I saw a few anyway.
So when the Steelers traded you to the Browns, you had to be kind of happy figuring you're joining a more established winning organization.
Yeah, I did. But the problem was, you know, Milt Plum was the quarterback at that stage, but they had Jimmy Brown and Bobby Mitchell as the running backs. And Paul Brown was going to run that, and why wouldn't you with those two guys? And so I didn't get to play. I didn't get to play in Pittsburgh, and I didn't get to play in Cleveland. And
did you think to yourself, maybe I should give up this sport and do something else, go into the business world?
Very much so. I was thinking, and so I got a thought to my head that I went to Paul Brown in June. And June is a time that the assistant coaches have off before they have a training camp. And I went through. I asked Paul Brown to put me on waivers, and he did. I'd been there 2 years and hadn't played, and so nobody picked me up. And the reason was I talked to other guys afterwards that said, geez, we were on vacation. We'd have known you were on waivers. We'd at least brought you in and, take a look at you. And I said, well, I'm glad you didn't, because Hank Stram was in Pittsburgh where I was living. He was there at a coaches conference. He would have lunch with me. And he could see that I wasn't very happy not getting any opportunity for, 5 years in professional football. 3 in Pittsburgh and 2 in Cleveland, and really hadn't played. And he just acquired the head coaching of the new league. It was the Dallas Texans in the American Football League or whatever they called it. And he said, geez, if you ever get free, I'd love to have the tape. So I got to thinking, well, I'm going to ask. Because I knew I wasn't going to get any play the next year. So I asked Paul Brown to put me on waivers, and he did. And I went through. And so I was a free agent. And so then I contacted Hank Stram, and he and I got together. And I just wanted a chance to play. And I thought Hank Stram was one guy that knew about me because he worked with me at Purdue University for 4 years. That if anybody was going to give me a chance to play, he would give me a chance to play, and it worked out that way.
What was Coach Stram like?
What's he like? Did you ever meet him?
I never met him. I heard him on the radio several times. He seemed extremely intelligent.
He is intelligent. He was just, yes, he's a very interesting guy.
What made him such a great coach?
He wasn't afraid to start and do something different. He was always dingling and wingling and working things, offensively in particular, just doing something that maybe has a better chance to move the football and score some points. And he just wasn't everything to run the ball and all that, but he'd come up with things, and he had a great personality. He got along with most everybody.
The AFL was different than the NFL back then in that they were more of a passing league, and that seemed like it catered to what you enjoyed doing.
Well, it was, yeah, but there was more throwing in that league. I think that's why when the league got started and they had to do something, that make it a little more interesting for the people who pay tickets to go in and watch the football games. And there was, the Chicago, Bears, and all those teams that were so terrific back in that era. They were basically a running team, so, and they passed sometimes, but came back with the American Football League. Then they started throwing the ball all over the place.
You had some great receivers in that league with Lance Allworth, Charlie Hennigan, and you had a couple of good receivers too.
Yes, we did. Chris Burford was one of them. He was an All-American and was a terrific receiver. And Hank got into the passing game. He did the other things too, but he'd be an innovator. And he wasn't afraid to do things differently than what some of the other teams go through in the way they worked.
So did he let you call your own plays in the huddle, or did he basically relay them to you?
I called the plays. We would get together on the sidelines when I wasn't in the game and talk about what was going on and with ideas that he has and what ideas that I had. But I was basically the guy calling the plays in the huddle. And it's not like I was had a new offense. I was running the plays that Hank had been working on all week long.
So you start with Dallas, you win the MVP, you guys move to Kansas City, and you go to a couple championship games. Did you think, you know what, I really want the chance to play against the NFL guys because I think we could beat them?
Well, it was interesting. I was still living in Pittsburgh, and in '62 we won the championship, and Hank called me and said, if you're thinking of moving to Dallas, don't do it because Lamar is going to move the team, and he didn't know exactly where it was. And so he told me, he says that he understood that he said, Leonard, we're going to go north of Kansas City, the training camp, because in '62, training camp was in Dallas. Now, you can imagine what the weather's like in August.
A little hot.
That place. Oh, God. You could hardly walk on the sidewalk because it just goes right through you. And so I was concerned about where's training camp going to be. And he said, well, Leonard, we're going to go north. I said, oh, okay. Well, he had a sense of humor, too. He didn't tell me north meant 15 minutes north of downtown Kansas City, Missouri, where it's hotter than hell up there, too, in that time of the year. So that started, and we had a long relationship.
Who was your biggest competition in the AFL back in that time?
Who was the competition?
Who was your biggest opponent? Which team?
Well, San Diego would be one that comes to my mind. They had some good players. Ernie Ladd and some of those big old 300-pound guys that could move around. That they had good offense and defense. Lance Allworth was in there. John Haley was a quarterback that threw the ball all over the place, and so they had a very good team, and they were in our division. So that was the team that we had to beat in order to get to the playoffs.
When you guys merged with the NFL and you had that first championship game, I talked to Jerry Kramer. He said kind of the Packers thought you were going to be kind of easy because they thought they had beaten the two tough teams in Dallas going in there. And they said, we really didn't know that much about Kansas City, but they kind of took you for granted, and you surprised them that first half.
Well, that was, I recall that myself. That was a big event for us, a bigger event, I think, for us than them, because they've had championships and they've had good football teams. And so it was a situation where I thought we were in awe of the Green Bay Packers. In fact, a couple of the players on their team, I had some players on my team that was his hero. I said, this is not going to work out too well, I don't think. But that was just that game, and after that, things really evened up after that first Super Bowl.
What was that first Super Bowl like for you guys?
Well, it was just we'd never been involved in anything like it, the championship things. But just I was one of the guys that, I didn't make it in the National Football League.
So if you felt like it was your chance to prove that you belonged? Hello?
I didn't get what you said.
No. So you felt your team and you felt like it was your chance to prove that you belonged in the NFL?
I think after that game, yes, because we had some players too, and but our guys were just in awe, all of us in awe that here we are in the Super Bowl one. We shouldn't have been because nobody watched the darn thing.
Yeah, the stadium was half empty?
Half. No, not half. There was a whole section, and there was, I think, 4 people in it. So it wasn't a thing where a sellout or anything like that, and nothing like it is today. But the thing is, for us, we're playing with the best in professional football, the Green Bay Packers. And I think that maybe we gave them too much because we still had to play a game.
That Chiefs defense was ferocious. I mean, I think you probably had the best linebackers in history with Bobby Bell, Willie Lanier, and those guys. It was absolutely incredible. What was it like going against them in practice?
I would rely on them. Because if I was doing something, I'm throwing something into, they're not, you're not going to not full scrimmage with your own teammates, and so I'd ask them, could you have been there? Say I threw a pass to somebody, and most of the time he said, yeah, Lenny, I think I could have been there. But every once in a while, they said, it was it. It gave me an idea of how I had to play and how quickly I had to release the football. And so that helped me, that just playing against the great players that I had to play against in practice. You think about the Minnesota Viking game, there are, I think, 4 or 5 guys that are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame on the defense that played in that game for Kansas City.
Yeah, Buck Curly Culp. Yeah, Buck
Curly
Culp.
You got Willie Lanier. You got Bobby Bell. You had Emmett Thomas, who's in the defensive secondary. We had a defense. That was a mismatch, really. All we had to do is don't screw it up, because we had the guys to make it happen, and really, and it did.
Because everybody talked about the Purple People Eaters. I mean, your defense didn't really have a name, but it was like you said, every bit as good as the Vikings.
Are you kidding me? We had. I just named some of the defense that I had on my team, and so knowing that so as an offensive quarterback who calls the plays, that you could maybe call some plays that are on the edge of being good or maybe not so good, because you knew that the defense was going to hold you up too. So It was great for me anyway.
Who was the leader of the defense? Was it Willie Lanier?
He was one of them. We had more. We had Willie was one, very much so. And who was the defensive end? Another one. We had several guys that you could count on that defensive team. But Jerry Mays was another one, defensive end that started with the Texans when they formed the league, and he was a terrific player, and he was a good leader as well.
I got to give Hank Stram credit, though. I mean, making Willie Lanier the first black starting middle linebacker in the 60s, I mean, that was controversial, but he knew what he was doing.
He did indeed. I think, I think going back to college when he was recruiting, high school players, you got to schmooze those people to go to the university that you're working for. And I think that he was a very personable guy, Hank Stram, and a very knowledgeable one. And he was a guy that wanted to win too, but he was going to find a way to develop an organization where he could find a way to win the football games.
Did anyone talk more on the team than Bobby Bell? Till this day, you can never shut that guy up.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I was with him 2 weeks ago at something in Chicago, and they wanted to talk. He goes, no, they were making fun of him, and there he took the microphone, ran the auction, and didn't stop.
Oh, yeah, that's him. You're kidding me? Yeah, I've been with him. I've been just some of those events that he's in. Yeah, he's not shy by any means.
I mean, him and Fred Williams.
He's a hell of a. He's an athlete. He's a heck of an athlete.
I think he could have played any position on the field.
Yeah, he could throw the damn ball. He had great speed, and he was very, very good. Very good.
What was it like that game with the Raiders with Ben Davidson when he hit you in your helmet? What did basically when he gave you guys a chance to win that game? What were you guys thinking? That are these Raiders crazy?
When we knew about the Raiders, after you play them a time or two, that you better brace yourself because they would challenge the rules in the game of football sometimes. But we had a very tough. So we had guys that could give it back to them. So you knew that with Ben Davidson, turn your back on him because he could take a cheap shot at you.
Who is the toughest?
I think that has a lot to do with Al Davis. Might have had a lot to do with that too.
Was there a big rivalry between Al and Hank Stram?
I'd say yes and no. That was the team that Hank wanted to beat, because if you beat that team, you're going to win a championship or have a good chance for a championship. But that was what they were. Well, we had some tough guys on our team too. You mentioned some of them.
How did you know when it was time to call it a career?
Well, I think I played 19 years. Didn't necessarily play all that much my first 5 years, but the 14 years, I was a starting quarterback. And goodness, I was 40 years old. I think 40 years old my last year. And you don't have the same enthusiasm as you do when you're in your early 20s, as when you're 40 years of age. So I knew it was time. Besides that, I was involved in broadcasting at that time too.
Because, I mean, in the mid-'60s, while you were playing with the Chiefs, they made you sports director. How did that come about?
Well, it was interesting. Jack Stedman was a general manager, and he went to KMBC TV, which was a television station in Kansas City, and he went to the general manager, and he said, listen, we have to have sports at 10 o'clock. They didn't have any sports at 10 o'clock. What they would do is the anchor would give the baseball team score, or KU or MU or K-State, and that was it. Because Jack Stedman was interested in selling some tickets, so he said, we got to get a sports guy up there. And the guy said, well, the general manager said, well, I've been thinking about it, but I don't have anybody in mind. Do you? Jack said, yes, I do. Well, who is it? Our quarterback, Len Dawson. And naturally, the general manager says, well, what kind of experience does he have? He said, don't worry about it. He can handle it. This is without ever talking to me. So that's how it started. So I would get through practice at 5 o'clock. I'm on the 6 o'clock news, go home and have dinner with my family, come back and do the 10 o'clock news. I didn't put it together. Somebody else had to put it together, but I did it. And did that for, 10 years? 66 or something like that. And then I retired. NBC and CBS both contacted me, and I went with NBC. And then there was this HBO situation, cable, that got involved in Inside the NFL, and I was there for that part.
How did that come about? Because, I mean, cable was in its infancy. Did they approach you about starting that show?
Yes. And it was the only place that did, when this happened on Tuesday, I think, or Tuesday or Wednesday, where you had highlights of all the games played the last Sunday. Now, they got a Sunday night, they have the highlights of what is played on Sunday. And so that's just something that just was new, because people would get home from work and have an opportunity to see it, and we would have people in, guests that would come on the show too. But Nick Bonacani and myself are one of two main anchors. But then a lot of other guys came aboard.
Did you develop a deep friendship with Nick Bonacani from that show?
Do I what now?
Did you develop a big friendship with Nick Bonacani from hosting that show all those years?
Yeah, I did, and I found that my wife tells me that he's not in good health.
No, he's got CTE now.
He does?
Yes.
I guess she found out she was right. Yeah. Well, we were all in the same boat, because Nick was in that league, not in the National Football League in the beginning, and me too, and so we had the same feelings, really, about the game of football.
Was it hard when you were broadcasting in Kansas City, doing the sports, when you were playing? Did you feel like you had to sugarcoat everything, or could you feel like you could be honest about what's going on with the team?
Nobody's ever honest anymore, anyway. I would measure things, because coaches, don't you?
Yes.
Don't ruffle anything, don't get the controversial things like that, or spell out somebody and do things like that, because now you got to put the fire out. So I didn't have any problem doing that.
What was Lamar Hunt like? It seemed like he was an icon there in Kansas City.
Oh my God. I mean, thank goodness for Lamar Hunt. I do that all the time. That he loved sports, loved football, and started that league. Just think about it. The number of people but had an opportunity to perform where otherwise, it wasn't going to be there. So he was something special.
How did it feel like when you found out you were getting inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, I grew up at Cali. I'm from Alliance, Ohio, and that's about 18, 20 miles from Canton, Ohio. When I was in high school, we played against Canton McKinley, which was a strong high school football team for years and years in the state of Ohio. Massillon, Ohio, too, is out there too, where Paul Brown got started in that. But I never thought about it, or would dream about it, of being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I hadn't. But, it's the greatest honor that you can have. Period.
Again, I mean, when you go back to
unless you're a sportscaster or something like that, though.
you went in the Hall of Fame not only as a player but as a broadcaster. That has to be double special for you.
Yeah, there's three of us. There's three of us that is in. Let's see. It was the running back.
I know Deerdorf is. I know Dan
Frank
Deerdorf.
Gifford.
Frank Gifford.
Deerdorf, yes. That's from St. Louis, yes. But we got that honor, and that was a great honor.